Hey out there, all you residents of The Wired. Wait, that's a Serial Experiments Lane reference, and I don't watch anime. Today we're looking at a video that Vox published in 2018. Now, I don't know if at the time they were trying to be clickbaity like BuzzFeed was with their manspreading videos, but my gosh, this has to be one of the worst videos I think there is on all of YouTube. Now, I have nothing against Vox as a whole. You know, they're a decent journalism site, and some of their videos are actually really informative. But this one is just, like, ridiculous. So, it's called Pinball Isn't As Random As It Seems, and the first time I saw it, I nearly did a double take. Let's take a double take, or a triple take, at it together. I'm not the most athletic, you know. I'm not into basketball or baseball or football or soccer or even bowling, really. But there is one sport that I've always been adamant about and I've always played whenever possible, that being the great American sport of pinball. I think pinball is one of the greatest sports of all time. It truly is an insane game of competitive drive and push, and, you know, I'm not a gamer. I don't like video games. I have nothing. They do nothing for me. But a pinball machine. Now we're talking. That gets my that gets my competitive spirit going. I don't even care about like basketball or football. Pinball all the way for me. So when I saw this video initially, I saw it right when it came out back in 2018 from Vox about pinball. I was like, oh yeah, pinball. You know, who doesn't like a good video about pinball? There's a lot on the internet, you know, a lot of like pinball machine reviews and history of pinball and, you know, very interesting analyses of this great sport. So I was like, oh yeah. But then I click, and the first thing that kind of throws you off is the title, Pinball Isn't As Random As It Seems. Pinball isn't random. I know this right off the bat, having played pinball from a young age, being, you know, familiar with the sport. I know it's not random, but I give it the benefit of the doubt. I press play, and what I'm bombarded with is just a messy pile of cringe. The first bit of the video is this guy asking, I guess, people who work at Vox, what do you think of when you think of a pinball machine? And they're like, just a random assortment of beeps and boops. Or they're like, I see a slot machine.
I kind of see like a giant slot machine.
There's shiny things and bright lights.
Now, there's a reason that pinball machines can be like in any bookstore or restaurant or, you know, anywhere. And slot machines can only be in specific cities, and even then you have to have a gaming license. It's because slot machines run on luck, and pinball machines run on skill. Now, there was a type of pinball machine, I wouldn't really consider it a pinball machine, but there was a type back in the 40s where the objective was just to shoot the ball with a plunger and have it land in certain holes. And there were no flippers or bumpers or slingshots or anything, so that was a gambling device. And the same goes for most pachinko machines over in Japan today. Most of those are considered gambling devices. However, a pinball machine is definitely not gambling because there's flippers, and you can, like, control where the ball goes with the flippers. So I'm not sure how, like, nobody at Fox knows this. Like, to compare a pinball machine to a slot machine is just, on the face of it, completely wrong. So then we move on to the next section where they bring in a pinball expert, Roger Sharp. I have nothing against this guy. He seems pretty chill, but they bring him on to explain the most, like, trifling things about pinball. Like he doesn't even explain some cool niche subject that maybe people didn't know about before. He's just like, you shoot the ball, you shoot the ball.
I think the biggest hurdle for most people is that they think that the ball is not controllable.
And he's even shown on a news program from 1990 explaining the same stuff to idiots who didn't get it back then either. So I guess ignorance about pinball is a real like societal problem that's been going on since the 90s, which I just think is so sad.
But what you're doing kinetically is manipulating flippers to hit a ball, and you're going in a certain line of action when the ball is down to the flipper.
This video, the conceit of it, is basically like, hey, did you know that pinball has rules? Which is kind of like making a whole video about like, hey, did you know that chess has rules? And if you move the pieces around in a certain way, you're more likely to win? Like, yeah, no shit, that's how a game works in game theory, you know?
I never know what to look at.
Every time I play, I feel like the ball just goes wherever the hell it wants to go.
Like, and then it shows him playing a pinball machine. The main guy of the video, he's like, you know, this is how I usually play a pinball machine.
If you're like me, you probably use flippers like this.
And he's just like hitting the flipper buttons randomly, like even when the ball isn't on them. Like, what'd you do that for? You know that hitting the flipper button when the ball isn't anywhere near it doesn't do anything, right? You're just wasting your energy, you know? Like, he plays pinball like how a toddler plays pinball, I have to assume. Or like, you know, they say that like casual players of pinball will play like that, but like I've never seen anyone play pinball like that. Even people who, you know, might not be like the best at pinball don't just like, you know, they have like a, you know, even if they don't like catch the ball, or even if they can't like pass a ball from one flipper to another or do fancy tricks like that, they just flip when the ball's on the flipper, you know? It's like, why the heck would you flip and flip a flipper if the ball isn't on it? He seriously plays pinball like a 3-year-old, and I just think this is so funny. But then he's like, this is how you're supposed to play it.
When you're supposed to play like this.
If you can slow things down, it's to your advantage.
And he catches the pinball. Oh my gosh, you've elevated yourself to godlyhood now. You know, and I'm not trying to be like a gatekeeper or an elitist here or anything. You know, I'm not a pinball wizard. I mean, I've listened to that song and I've played both of the pinball machines that are based on it, and it's a total jam. But I'm not a pinball wizard. I mean, I've been playing pinball for most of my life, and I'm not much better at it than when I first started out. You know, I can like catch a ball and pass it sometimes, but I get just as much drains as anyone else. But like, you know, I'm not even a good pinball player. I've only gotten wizard mode like twice my whole life. But at least give pinball some like respect and just assume that people understand its basic operations. Because seriously, when you're saying like catch the ball like it's some kind of arcane knowledge, like that's the most basic thing you can do with the flipper. There's a lot of flipper tricks. I've been to a website where they list like 50 different flipper tricks you can do, all kinds of stuff. Like during Multiball, you can get 2 balls to go over to one flipper and go to the other, and it's crazy. The amount of like strategies people have devised for how to work the flippers is crazy, but this video doesn't list any of them. It's just like, oh yeah, you catch the ball on the flipper.
Knowing how to use these is the key to the game.
And that's like saying, did you know that you're more likely to win at baseball if you catch the ball with your mitt? You know, because like the flipper's your only implement for really controlling the ball, so it stands to reason there'd be some way to control the ball with it. And I don't think you need this Vox video to figure out that that's, pushing the flipper up and having the ball land in the little joint. Like, it's basic intuition. Is it just me, or should people grow up basically, like, knowing how a pinball works, Like, the same way people should know how baseball works and how basketball works, They don't need to know, like, every rule to basketball or every rule to baseball. But they should at least know, like, oh, you're supposed to dunk the basketball, and you're supposed to hit the baseball. You're supposed to use the flippers on the pinball. Like, shouldn't people just know this stuff? Like, I don't know particularly about croquet, but even I know, oh, you're supposed to hit the croquet ball with the mallet. Like, it's ridiculous, the extent to which people don't know basic shit about a sport that's been around for decades. So then Vox shows off this fake pinball machine they've constructed for, I guess, display purposes, called Amelia Earhart's Last Flight, and that name is as cringy as it sounds. I've played a ton of great and classic pinball games in my day: Attack from Mars, Scared Stiff, Bonsai Run, Creature from the Black Lagoon. I've played a bunch, but Amelia Earhart's Last Flight looks really underwhelming, and I probably would not be into that game much if I saw it at my local pinball establishment.
And there's always these guys, jet bumpers. And while it might seem like they're meant to derail your game, they're actually pretty harmless.
Anywho, then the expert guy is like, hey, did you know that when you shoot a flashing light, that means more points because it's lit?
Go for whatever targets are lit. That means they're activated and worth points.
Each game was different. Each game had different geometry. Each game had different rules.
It's like he's explaining this to a room full of kindergartners. It must be so annoying for him. I really sympathize with the expert guy. Stuff he says is so mind-numbingly basic. It's like this is pinball, not even pinball 101. It's like pinball 001. It's like, hey, did you know that when something is lit, you should shoot for it? That's like saying, hey, did you know that when there's an opening in football, you should pass towards it? I don't even know if football works, but, it's generally my assumption that, like, if there's a spot that's open, you pass for it, the same way that in pinball, if something's flashing, you shoot for it. Pretty basic, pretty rudimentary information, but this Vox video goes, oh my god, we've cracked the code, we've broken the matrix, holy shit, we're onto some intense stuff now. Oh, the game will never be the same again because this expert we've brought on has revealed this mind-changing information to us.
I'm just like hitting things aggressively and hoping it works out.
Yeah, no shit. If something's lit, you should shoot it. That's why the machine has lights on it. You just think those lights were there for decoration? Oh, I forgot. They do just think the lights are there to be decorative, because they're so dumb. Like,
Letters that don't mean anything, that aren't linked up to anything, it's just designed for beeps and boobs.
how do you go your whole life and not know the rudimentary basics of how a pinball machine works? Like seriously. The last thing they mention in their little video is Multiball, and they describe Multiball as a mode.
Multiball is a hectic, beautiful, and terrifying mode where you juggle multiple balls simultaneously.
Which, it's really not a mode. Like, modes are something different, Modes are like, the different rooms in Addams Family, or the different, like, tales in Scared Stiff, or, the different episodes in Twilight Zone, or, the different movies on the Indiana Jones pinball, or the different songs on the AC/DC pinball. That's modes, but they call Multiball a mode, and I really don't think Multiball is a mode.
3 balls, and the game spits them all back out at once.
But for whatever reason, they describe multi-ball as like the most exciting thing that can happen to you during a game of pinball, like it's the ultimate objective or something.
Sounds simple, but hitting all the right targets is not an easy task.
Which it's really not. That's what wizard mode is for, to be the ultimate, mode of pinball. And, like, I get that the staff at Fox are probably never going to get a wizard mode ever, but, that's the actual objective of pinball, is to get to wizard mode, not to get to multi-ball. I mean, multi-ball's pretty easy to get, comparatively. I've gotten multi-ball, like, half the games I've ever played. It's never that hard to get.
I've never got multi-ball before. Oh my god, I just got multi-ball.
But they treat it like it's like the final boss of pinball, and like, it's really not, Wizard mode is more like, final. I've only gotten one wizard mode ever, or I think twice. I think it was, both times it was on the Monster Mash pinball, or Monster Bash, I forget what it's called, something. It's fun. So the video ends being like, oh, you'll never play pinball the same way again. We've opened your eyes. And it's like, this video showed me nothing that anyone wouldn't already know.
I mean, I give up because I literally end the game in 5 seconds.
Like, pinball needs to be more well known, And in high school, for instance, there was a football team, and there was a baseball team, and there was a basketball team. There was no pinball team. There was like no way that you could get educated about pinball, and and I think that's a shame, because like, arcade games should really be treated the same as sports. Like skee-ball, for instance, that shit takes some skill, There should be a skee-ball league. There should be an air hockey league. If someone wants to get big in air hockey, that's just as much of a valid sport as anything else. And by the same token, there should be a pinball team in every high school, because it's a gosh dang cool and fun and interesting sport. And, I always had to spend like 50 cents per game just to learn about it, when any decently run high school could invest $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 into a pinball machine and set it up, and that'd be a decent use of a school's money, I would say. You probably spent that much on like baseball equipment. So pinball literacy is a big problem in America today. A lot of people don't know how to play pinball, but even so, I don't think it's as bad as this Fox video makes it out to be, because this Fox video would literally have you believe that everyone just taps the flippers like buh, 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 buh. And like, if that's the case, that's just really like sad.
Times I will get the multi-ball, have no idea what makes multi-ball happen.
And people are playing too many video games and not enough pinball. It's time for some pinball, So seriously, I think another aspect of it is that video games are much easier to play because there's consoles and everything. And I know there's virtual pinball. It just doesn't work the same. It doesn't have the same, real-time physics on it. And it never will, So I'm not going to just like buy a fake pinball video game or whatever. Overall, I think this Fox video, it makes me more angry than the BuzzFeed man-spreading video, I can say that much for sure. It is just crazy in like how condescending it is, how, like how above you it all is.
What happens if you do this?
If there was someone who didn't know how to play pinball, I definitely wouldn't show them this video, because it's like demeaning as hell. It's like, you didn't know how to play pinball, you stupid idiot. Well, we have the secrets for you, and we're gonna totally change the way you think, man. We're gonna open up your mind juices. That's just not really the way to make an informative video on anything. I haven't seen a video this bad from Vox since then, but like seriously, this might be the worst video they've ever made. That's it for this interesting little review. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell me what you think about pinball and whatever down in the box of words. And until next time, sayonara something. Yeah, sayonara something. Pinball wizard has to be a trick. Pinball wizard has to be. It sure plays mean pinball.